Welcome everybody. My name is Ed, and so we're going to talk about pretty much all things A+ related. That's what we're pretty much going to do today. I just finished putting together the A+ course that Laura was just talking about, and after completing it, we talked about, me getting out here and talking to you guys a little bit about this. I know there's a lot of questions that come up, and there's not always an opportunity to get back with the author of a course through this type of training. So I try to think of what typical questions I get, and I want to try to address them. So the two main things that I originally had put together were that we're going to talk about the exams themselves, right? The actual A+ certification. Make sure that you understand what exactly it takes to get that certification, how to prepare for that certification, and then the other side of it would then be, what do you do next? And that's really, quite frankly, that is the number one thing I get asked. Okay, I mean, figuring out how to get A+ certified is not that difficult. You can go to CompTIA's website. I actually have a link that I'm going to bring up a little bit later on. You go to CompTIA's website, and they'll tell you, here's what you do. Take these exams, and you get certified. What people really ask me more often than anything else is, well, now what do I do, right? I got my A+ certification. What do I do next? And one thing that actually just kind of came up to me, it came into my brain today, and I didn't throw it into the slides that we're going to be looking at or anything there, but we'll talk about it, is I had the idea when I put these slides together of what do we do next as far as certification. But the other half of it is, what do I do next as far as a job? What types of jobs, and how do I go about getting those jobs? All right, so we're going to address all those things here today. So with that, let's just go ahead and get started. And if I could get my screen to move, we could get started. There we go. Okay, so in order to get A+ certified, and I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to make this first part very quick. Okay, so if you're thinking to yourself, oh man, he's just going to go through, the exams you need to take, and I can read that for myself. I get that. I just want to make sure in case any of you here haven't looked this up yet, you get the information. Now, the A+ certification is actually made up of 2 exams, okay, not 1. So even though what you're looking at here looks like it's just 1 exam, this is the first of 2 exams, all right? And it's just simply called CompTIA A+, and the exam code, the current exam code, is 220-801. Okay, and then I'll jump the gun here a little bit. The second exam that you need to take is 220-802. Everything else you see here regarding this 220-801 exam comes straight from the information that CompTIA publishes. Okay, so they say there will be no more than 90 questions. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what do you mean no more than 90? What do you mean maximum 90? How many will I get? Does that mean I might get 60? Does it mean I might get 70, might get 80? Yeah, you know what? You might. Other people ask, well, why is that? Why do I get, let's say, 80 questions, and then my friend goes and does it, and they only get 70 questions? So that doesn't seem very fair. Well, the reason typically has to do with the introduction of beta questions. Okay, what you don't realize is that when you are taking this is not just true for CompTIA, but for all IT certification exams. All the different vendors do this. When you're taking these exams, you sometimes are given questions that are not scored. They have found that using you, the test taker, as a beta tester for those questions to see if they're written properly, see if they seem to fall in line, that they make sense to subject matter that you're familiar with. That's how some of the best questions, get put into the exam. So not every question that you look at is being scored. Okay, that part, for the most part, is going to be kept fair amongst everybody. The passing score is a 675, but one thing that CompTIA, along with many other vendors, have gone to is a scoring system that is not necessarily, it's a scale that's not 0 to 1,000. Okay, so 60-75 does not necessarily mean 67.5%. Okay, it's a relative number, so keep that in mind. The length of the test is you get 90 minutes. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, so I could get 90 questions and I've only got 90 minutes. That's 1 minute per question. Wow. That's one heck of a sprint, isn't it? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. The good news is the way CompTIA questions are typically written, they usually aren't stories. Okay, you're not reading paragraphs. Okay, other vendors, that is the case. But these questions, they're usually 1 or 2 quick lines. Okay, something that you could easily read in, 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, I've never actually timed how long it takes me to read a question, but not very long. It's just 1 or 2 quick sentences. So even though it seems like 90 questions, 90 minutes, that's bang, 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 the reality is, I think if you ask most people who have gone out there and done this and succeeded in passing their exam, and if they were truly prepared for the exam, they didn't even use anywhere close to the 90 minutes. I don't remember exactly how long I used, but I can tell you for most of my exams, on average, I usually use, I would say, just a hair over half of the time that the vendor allows me. Okay, and that's because I go in very prepared. And we're going to talk about that preparation in just a minute. As of right now on their website, they say that the exam is only presented in English. I do know that they do typically present their exams in other languages. Again, even as of today, when we go to the website, this may have changed. But as of when I went and looked this up a couple months ago, it only said English. What you want to do is check with the testing provider. So when you actually go to register for the exam, if English is not your first language, then you want to check with the provider to see if it's presented in another language. I can also say that if English is not your first language and that's the only language that is available, I know Microsoft, for instance, gives you extra time. I think CompTIA does as well. Okay, so you want to go to the issue of 90 questions in 90 minutes. Obviously, if reading the question is going to take you a long time, I think they'll give you a little extra time. All right, moving along. Even though it doesn't look like the screen changed, it did. We jumped to the 220-802 exam. You'll see the number of questions is the same. Everything here is the same except for the passing score. This one's a 700. Does that mean that it's harder? Does that mean you have to get a higher score, as far as mathematically? The answer is I don't know. Okay, that's something that is kept a secret. Okay, none of us know what the scale actually is. And even if you do need to get a higher percentage of questions correct, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a harder exam. Sometimes the vendors will actually force you to get a higher score on what is statistically considered to be the easier exam, and that's why you need the higher score. Okay, the only other thing I want to tell you, as far as these two exams and the specifics here, is that, first of all, the numbers, right? We have 220-801 and 802. Previously, okay, so if this was a year ago, I'd be talking to you about the exams 220-701 and 702. And I'm speculating that a couple of years from now, I will probably be talking to you about the 220-901 and 902. I don't know for sure that they'll go to those numbers, just a guess. The reason the numbers keep changing is because CompTIA revamps their certification every 3 years or so. Okay, and as of a couple years back, you also will need to re-up your certification every, I think it is 3 years. I'd have to look up, but I think it's 3 that they ended up with. Okay, and they did this to make sure that that your certification is truly valid in the marketplace. Back in the day, way back when I took A+ for the very first time back in 1998, I can tell you that it was a lifetime certification. And so I actually can say I'm A+ certified for the rest of my life because I'm grandfathered in under that old plan. But here's the reality. If an employer was to see that I took my exam back in 1998, employer is going to say, well, what do you know about today's computing? Because it's completely different than it was in 1998. It's then up to me to validate either through job history, experience, things like that, or by taking the newer, more up-to-date exam. All right, so that's why that's all done. Now, if you want to understand a little bit about the actual, like, what is in the 801 and what is in the 802 exam, you'll see here, and again, this is straight from CompTIA's website, so I'm not giving you, you know, if this is wrong, it's on them, but it's the 801 covers fundamentals of computer technology, installation, and configuration of PCs, laptops, and related hardware, and basic networking. Now, you know what many people refer to the 801 exam as? They refer to it as the hardware exam. Okay, this is the exam that is more typically leaning toward specific, you know, knowing about specific hardware, knowing what the hardware components are, knowing how to repair them, know how to install them, things like that. Okay, so this is the one that's going to be going through things like motherboards and processors and memory and hard drives and monitors and printers and you know, and so on and so forth, all kinds of stuff. Whereas the 220-802 covers the skills required to install and configure PC operating systems, as well as common features. The examples they give would be like network connectivity or email for mobile operating systems, Android and Apple iOS. I'm actually kind of surprised that since Microsoft is a CompTIA member, I'm surprised that Windows Mobile hasn't, or I guess it's not called Windows Mobile anymore, right? It's Windows Phone. But anyway, that hasn't gotten on there yet. But if it's not already, it will soon. But the bottom line is, if I wanted to just kind of sum that up, you know, what do people refer to the 802 exam? They refer to it as the software exam. Okay, 801 is the hardware, 802 is the software. Sometimes 802 is considered software and troubleshooting, because troubleshooting is a big part of 802. Here's what I want to tell you. CompTIA, although the A+ exams used to be a true hardware and software, or they called it hardware and OS, or, you know, operating systems for the other one, they've now kind of moved away from that. They tried a few years back to completely move away from that. It didn't go over very well, so they've kind of come back to this 2-exam structure this way. It's not 100% hardware on the one side and software on the other. So here's what I recommend to you. If you have the means to do so, prepare for both at the same time. Okay? And I don't mean like literally simultaneously. I mean, you have to learn one thing and then the next and then the next and then the next. But I'm saying learn everything that you would need to know for the 801 and the 802 together before you go to take the 801 exam. And by the way, that's another thing. You don't have to take 801 first. There's no rule that says you have to do 801 and then 802. That is, I think, what's typical. I think it's probably just because they are, you know, in numeric order that way, so we tend to do it. But you don't have to. There's no rule that says that. You can take them in any order you like at all. The other aspect of, you know, as far as how you look at it, if you were to take the 801 exam and fail it, but you already had the 802 scheduled and you were feeling pretty good about it, don't choose to not do the 802 because you failed the 801. If you think you're ready for the 802, go ahead and take it. Again, it doesn't matter that you pass that one first. Okay, so those are the exams themselves. And by the way, we're going to take a look in just a little bit at the website, the CompTIA website. And on that site, you'll see not only the A+ certification and how to go about finding the details of it, but other CompTIA certifications as well. I will show you where you would go and retrieve the actual objectives list for those 2 exams. Okay, I didn't want to bore you by going through the entire list. I will tell you that I do go through the entire list in my course. Okay, so in the course that we just released, I actually have a certification lesson, and that's where a lot of this material was pulled from. It was from that lesson, and in that lesson I do go through all the different objectives, bullet point by bullet point. So as far as the study recommendations, all right, this is a big thing. When you look at it, it looks like stuff that's obvious. Okay, if you're looking at, you know, look at this with me here, and it's like, am I telling you anything here that is revolutionary? No, but I will tell you that I've been doing this a lot of years, and I will tell you that the things that I'm about to share with you, although you've heard them before, I have found that you need to hear them again. I've had fellow instructors who had trouble passing exams. And then I went through this stuff with them, and they said, oh, you know, I just needed to hear it again. I myself need to hear. I actually have somebody else that I go to, and they go through this stuff with me before every single exam. So here's what I recommend to you. If you are at the point that you're getting ready to go out and take one or both of these tests, great. Let me go through these recommendations with you. If you're not, when you get to that point, find somebody, watch my lesson where I go through it, or even just pull up, take some notes and pull up these points again. I'm telling you, it will mean a ton toward your, passing versus failing the exam. So when it comes to studying, the first thing is review all lessons. Now, here's what I mean by this. Now, again, this is pulled straight from the course, so this bullet point is as if I was talking to you at the end of you just finished watching my course. But this applies to whether you're watching my course, whether you sat in a course, whether you have a book, however you're choosing to learn the material. What I'm saying is you go back and review all the lessons, and the emphasis there should be on the word all. Okay? There is a tendency that people have to say, you know what, I don't need to watch that lesson or read that chapter in a book or pay attention during this hour in the classroom because the subject matter is something that you think you're already familiar with. And I think this really relates to what I was just saying a moment ago about how even though stuff I'm going to tell you in these next few minutes is, it's stuff you've heard all your life from different teachers and stuff before going to take tests, it matters to hear it again. Well, it's kind of the same thing here. Just because you already know the subject matter, there may be some small, even trivial pieces of information that are new, that you've never heard of before. And so you'll learn something new, but more importantly, you'll also learn how that information relates to the exam as it sits today. Now, the next bullet I have is using practice tests, and this is a big deal to me. I could actually talk to you for the next hour on nothing but this one bullet point. I'm not going to. I didn't want to scare you there thinking, oh, man, I was going to go on this one thing and just rant for an hour. I just want to let you know that I could, because this is a big kind of pet peeve of mine. People use practice tests incorrectly. Okay? Most people use practice tests incorrectly. You know how they use them? They use them as practice tests. Go figure. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is they will actually go out and get the practice test from some practice test company, and they will sit down and they will put it on their screen, and they'll go through 90 questions, and then they'll just answer them as best they can, and then they get a score. And then they base how ready they are for the real test on that score. That, in my opinion, and with a lot of years of experience to back this up, is wrong. The number of people I know who have come crying to me that they're using the practice test, and they'll use the most expensive, most reputable practice test company out there. They will go through those practice tests, and they'll say, I'm getting 95, 98, 99% on those exams, on the practice ones, but I keep failing the real one. It happens again and again and again. That score doesn't matter. That score only tells you how well you did on those questions, which are not necessarily, I don't even want to say necessarily, they're just not the same questions as the real exam. What happens is, in some of these practice test vendors, you know what they do? They'll actually say, I know one of them, their actual slogan was, keep taking it till you get 100%, right? And that was supposed to get you ready. Well, I got news for you. You go through 90 questions and you get half of them right, so you got a 50%, so you got 45 of them right. And then I don't care if you do studying or if you just wait a day and go back and take it again, you're going to subconsciously get a better score the next day. Right? You take it again, instead of 50, you're going to get a 60 or 65%. Why? Because you're basically memorizing. Okay, you're just memorizing those questions and what the answers are. And if you do study, like you go out and let's say you research, oh, okay, that's the answer to this question. All right, now you're definitely getting those questions right. But the problem is, I don't care whether you get those questions right or wrong. What I care is that you understand the technology that is behind those questions. So that's why I say use practice tests as additional study material. You'll watch my course, you'll learn a lot, and then you'll start doing the practice tests, and you'll see a question, and you'll go, I have no clue. And the reason why is because, well, I have yet to ever find a single publication that truly covered everything that could be covered. I know some like to advertise, the ultimate, Bible or, ultimate dictionary or whatever term they want to use, make you think that they're covering every last thing humanly possible. Well, you can't. Okay, it's just not practical. Okay, so that's where the practice has come in handy. Is you have my course, but then you have some practice questions, and when you look at those questions, understand the technology that they're asking you about, and if you don't, go out and research it, and don't just find the answer to the question. Find out the whys behind it. That's how you get ready. The third bullet I have here is practice, practice, practice. Please understand that IT certification exams were not originally created for the purposes of having people who would just go to school and take courses or read books or whatever, learn stuff that way, and then go get certified. That's not where they came from. They were originally designed as a validation of a skill set that IT professionals had, right? People, there were, back in the day when this all started, there were a lot of people who came straight out of high school, went right into the workplace, because colleges at the time didn't have a lot to offer when it came to computer classes because it was all new. So the real computer geeks of the world, they just kind of went out there and started doing it. I'm just looking real quick here. I just saw a question came in from someone who has to leave. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for coming. Anyway, so I just wanted to tell you that. All right, now I'm going to start a trend of questions coming in, right? All right, and by the way, I suppose I will stop for a moment and I will mention that. Please feel free to use the Q&A. Throw questions in there. We will be addressing them before we're done. So if you have questions that I'm not answering, throw them in there. But anyway, what I was saying was all the real computer geeks of the world, they were going out into the workforce. But now they had a problem. They now had experience, but they didn't have that college degree, right? And in order to get advancements in their career, they needed college degrees. So we created certifications. And when I say we, it's not like I did it, but the vendors created certifications to be able to give you a credential that would mean something in the marketplace. All right, so practice, practice, practice. It's all about actually knowing by getting experience. So anywhere you can, practice. Beyond that, I just put additional publications. Just again, it kind of makes the point of there is no one publication that's going to have everything. The other thing I can add to that is, I've had to learn as an instructor. I've had to learn that it's just a reality that there's, sometimes, hopefully it's just occasionally, right? Hopefully it's not a lot of the time. Hopefully it's a very small amount of time. I'm going to present something, and not everybody's going to get it. Okay, you're watching my course. I'm teaching you something, and for the most part, everything's going great. But then you get to one subject, and you're just lost. You're like, I don't get it. What did Ed say? I hear him talking, but I don't get it. It's okay to go ahead and grab something from another author who will present it a little bit differently, and then you get it. Okay, so this is a lot of how to study and truly get ready for this exam. When you feel you're almost ready, and some people differ this little part right here, schedule your exam 1 to 2 weeks in advance. Okay, schedule it out. Some people say when you start studying, when you first start studying, set a goal. 3 months, 4 months, 1 month, however long you think it's going to be. Either way, the idea behind this point here is the same. Don't wait until the day you're ready, right? Don't wait till that day you say, all right, I'm 100% ready, and then just schedule the exam and go take it. Because you know what'll happen? That day will never come, or at least it'll come way later than it otherwise would have, because these tests are not easy. Okay, you do have to put a lot of effort into it. And a lot of people get very nervous when it comes to test taking, and what will happen is you'll just sit there every single day saying, I think I need just a little bit more. I need a little bit more. I need a little bit more. And then but yet you were ready. You just have to set a goal and just do it. So once you schedule your exam, obviously continue to study, continue going through the practice tests. When you get to the night before the test, and this is where you're going to get to the stuff that I was saying that you've heard probably your whole life from various teachers and whatnot. By the time you get to the night before the test, you shouldn't be cramming for the exam. Now, I know some people, that's just how their brain works. They got to stay up and cram the night before, or it's just the only way they know how to function. I'm not going to argue with you. If you know yourself well enough, go ahead and do it. But for the most part, you should only be lightly reviewing the material to keep it fresh. Okay? By the day before, you should be as ready as you need to be. You should eat healthy. You should do something fun. I always be careful with the do something fun, because if someone says fun to them is going to the sports bar, watching the game, and drinking a lot of alcohol, all right, maybe that's not a match, right? Do something fun and healthy, I guess we could say, and get to bed early. Now, why do I throw all this stuff in here? Why do teachers always talk about getting a good night's sleep and stuff like that the night before a test? It's because it's a proven fact that the human brain functions better when it is well rested, well nourished, hydrated. I don't have drinking here, although I think I do on. No, I don't even have that on the next page. I was going to say on the day of the test, I'll add that to it. Besides the eating, make sure you're drinking, and drink water. Okay, get yourself hydrated. I can tell you that I've had people come into a test center that I worked at. One woman in particular I can remember. I will never, ever, ever forget her. She's the one story that I'll never forget, as far as she came in and she was shaking so much she could barely even pull out her ID to show me when she wanted to go in for the exam. And after talking to her a little bit, I come to find that she hadn't slept the night before because she was so nervous, and that along the same lines, because of the nerves, she hadn't eaten or drinking anything the whole day. So she was exhausted, malnourished, and dehydrated. That's not a good place to be when you go to take an exam. I also had come to find that she had already tried this particular exam 3 or 4 times prior and had failed it every time. So I refused to let her go into the testing room. And she got mad at me, making all kinds of claims that I didn't have the right to do that. And I just told her to trust me, that she would thank me later. So I didn't let her go in to take the test. I took her to the cafeteria area of the office that I was in, little kitchen that we had. Got her. We didn't have a lot of nourishing stuff, but at least like a bag of chips and a candy bar. Had her sit down and relax and drink some water. Talked to her a little bit about the exam and what it really meant. And she got to a point that she could relax enough. I let her go in and take the test, and guess what? She passed. She came out and did exactly what I said she was going to do. She came out and thanked me. Okay, I told her she'd thank me later. Not that she'd thank me later, but she then always, when she scheduled her exams, made sure I was in the building before she went and took the exam. Now, I'm no superhero. I just did very basic stuff, and it's what I have listed here. Staying relaxed, having a light meal. Like I said, make sure you drink something too. Plan on arriving early. Takes away the stress, right? If you're driving there and maybe there's an accident on the road and you're held up, you don't want that to be an extra stress. When you get to the testing center, bring your 2 forms of ID that they require, nothing else. Leave everything else at home or in the car if you drove. Why? Because they're going to take it from you. And that's just another thing to distract you. I've had people very distracted thinking, oh, they took my purse, and I hope they're not rummaging through it while I'm in here taking the test. Okay, or, oh, man, they took my wallet, and boy, I hope they're not like shopping on the internet with my credit cards. Okay, I mean, this stuff doesn't happen. I mean, I've yet to be to a training center where they did something inappropriate with someone's personal belongings, but it doesn't make you feel good to give it up. So don't bring it if you don't have to. Beyond that, if you do get there early and you have time to kill, rather than getting worked up over things, I usually say if you have something like flashcards, which some of the practice test companies give you, do just a real quick light review. Okay, just again, keeping it fresh, you're not really studying. When you're taking the test, read all the questions carefully, or I should say, read the question carefully.